So welcome everyone to the Tipping Points episode 32, where we ask key questions about how to preserve biodiversity while balancing conservation and development. The webinar series is an initiative of the Oppenheimer Generations Research and Conservation. Webinars usually take place on the last Thursday of the month at 1 p.m. My name is Kendall Wright, and I'm a scientist at the Wild Trust. I work primarily in marine protection, working with communities throughout the Western Indian Ocean to ensure conservation as well as sustainable use. I'm really glad that everyone's here today, and I really look forward to a really insightful discussion, particularly with our panelists. Please be aware that this session is recorded and it will be available online on the Oppenheimer Generations Research and Conservation YouTube channel. So if you miss anything or there's anything you'd like to go back and look at, please join and like the YouTube channel, and you can go and have a look. I also encourage you to sign up for the OGRC quarterly newsletter and stay tuned with their social media account channel so you don't miss any upcoming webinars and announcements. We're really excited. This is a great turnout for us on this Thursday when the cold front is finally coming through Durban. Please continue to introduce yourself in the chat box. If you've just arrived, you can put your name and where you're from. And nice to see people from all over, both the continent as well as I think I saw someone from Europe. Don't hesitate to also put questions in the chat box for us so that later on we can address those. So today I'm really pleased to announce three key speakers. First, we have Autone Mululuma. He is a passionate climate justice advocate and High Seas Youth Ambassador and Earth Echo International. He's leading a campaign to promote ocean biodiversity protection and support Zambia's ratification of the High Seas Treaty. Mululuma is studying environmental and natural resource management at the University of Zambia. Trained in grassroots advocacy by Action Aid Zambia, he works with youth to develop community-driven climate resilience solutions. Then we have Zandile Ndhlovu. She's a South African ocean conservationist, social activist, and filmmaker who is the first Black female freediving instructor from the country. We know her as the Black Mermaid, and she is the founder of the Black Mermaid Foundation. In November 2023, Ndhlovu was named in BBC's top 100 women's list. Finally, we have Olusola Adeoye. He's a Nigerian ocean conservationist and environmental advocate focused on sustainable marine practices. He leads the Coast to Deep Sea Initiative, a citizen science project that encourages youth from Lagos, their fishing communities, in habitat mapping and biodiversity research. Adeoye also heads the Coast and Ocean Program at Nature Care's Resource Center, where he promotes conservation and sustainable fishing. His work bridges local knowledge and international collaboration to build Africa's blue economy from the coast to the deep sea. So I'm going to be handing over to our first speaker, Autone, if you can take the stage. Autone, you seem to be muted. I'm not sure if it's just my side. I can't hear you, no. It might be if you just put earphones in, sometimes that happens. No, unfortunately, we can't hear you yet. I'm not sure if we would like to, if you'd like to log out and log back in, and in the meantime, we can start Zandile.
Is it
There
clear
we
now?
go. We've got you. We can start.
Thank you very much.
Autone.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kendo, and thank you all that have made time to join this insightful webinar. Just allow me to share my screen for just a second. Just help me confirm if you can see my screen.
We can see you and you're on presentation. You can go.
All right. If you could help me with first slide. I think it's on this. All right. So once again, thank you very much to everyone coming into this space from all across the continent, but also the world. My name is Autone Mululuma, and I'm a youth, high seas youth ambassador with Earth Echo International. Basically, as introduced by Kendo, I'm working to just bridge the gap of how essential our ocean is, even to a landlocked country like Zambia, and just bringing to the Zambian environmental conversations why it is essential to protect our ocean. So first of all, I'd like to highlight why the ocean even matters, and why even more so, even to landlocked countries when we are far away from the ocean. First of all, is that it stores about the largest organic carbon globally, and it also produces almost above half actually, greater than that even, of the oxygen that we breathe, but also plays a critical role in climate regulation and also absorbing of excess heat that we produce on land, but also through other processes that happen across the earth. And one thing that I think best highlights the importance of the ocean is climate regulation. We have been, I think, speaking in the past, recognizing terrestrial biomes such as the Amazon forest as some of the lungs of the ocean, of the world, and help in regulating our carbon emissions, but also our climate. But in fact, the ocean has played a greater role in actually mitigating, but also regulating our climate, and therefore we owe it our attention, our protection, and that's why we're having such conversations here, even having them in landlocked countries that are not bordered by oceans. I'd also then want to lean in onto ocean literacy, especially in Zambia, and why I think it is essential at this point in time, and just what are some of the gaps and the realities coming from a community that is predominantly, I think, arable, dependent on agriculture. Zambia, I think, was hit in 2023 with one of the worst dry spells, and this was attributed to the El Nino, which is an occurrence that happens in the ocean, but yet impacted our agriculture systems, our livelihoods, but also our food securities. And this just is evident in just how much there is no deliberate local awareness campaigns on ocean literacy in Zambia. Most of the time, these are just spoken about in classrooms, where students, through their social studies, their science rather, and their geography, get to understand how the ocean plays a role in their livelihoods, but not so much the extent to appreciating the smallest components, such as the phytoplanktons, but also to the biggest organisms, such as the whales that actually capture carbon on their bodies and help regulate our climate change, but also our environmental conditions. And also, one of the things, I think, what is status quo in Zambia is ocean topics appear briefly in our conversations, in our day-to-day activities. Most of them are usually at a much elitist or much higher stage of conversation, such as government negotiation and engagements. But when you go down to the community, where the effects of climate change being felt very severely, you find that there's no conversation on how the ocean contributes to some of the effects that we're feeling now, but also in how it can actually mitigate and actually help in resolving some of the climate. And the most, I think, greater barrier in Zambia is coming from a landlocked country. Maybe I speak for most of the 16 landlocked countries in Africa, is that being a landlocked country creates a disconnect, a sort of unconcerned side of things when it comes to talking about things to do with the ocean and why we should protect it. And through my advocacy and engagement with schools in my campaign, or Zambia for Ocean campaign, the first question I would get is, we are landlocked, and how does this matter to us? And I think this was being built more on the idea that Zambia is a landlocked country and there's literally nothing that it might contribute to its harm, but also it can benefit from the ocean itself. And then I would want to highlight, why does this matter? Why does protecting the ocean matter? Why does this conversation today matter? And the first thing, which is a negative thing that's being done to the ocean, is that pollution is also being contributed into the ocean by landlocked countries such as Zambia, because first of all, it has its GDP, or most of the products that we have in Zambia account for about 39% of all goods that are imported and ferried over the ocean. And this in itself just signals just how much dependent we are on oceans, specifically the high seas, which are not even governed by any one country. And incidents do happen where, especially as Zambia, we import, I think, oil mostly, petroleum, but also diesel and so forth. And we acknowledge that there's actually more instances where these tankers or these shipping containers can actually have a malfunction, and this can lead to spillage of this oil and be a very great danger to our ocean biodiversity, and also just the overall health of our oceans and our environment and survival. Even more harmful, because as humans, as people, we are very dependent on the ocean for our livelihoods, from the food security that it brings about, from the fishing that we do, which also has been so terrible because now there's there is trawling that has been so damaging to the fauna and also the biodiversity within these areas that are not restricted, or they're not governed by any one country, the high seas, which I have been actively working to bring attention to the Zambian government, which has, at least I would acknowledge that they have signed the BBNJ agreement, which is the high seas treaty, to protect these areas. But I think through our efforts, we're trying to bridge the gap and bringing the attention that it does matter that we, as a landlocked country, we have a stake in protecting our ocean, because we do inter-border, trans-border boundary trade. We also have, just recently, I would like to cite that we had a polluted river, which feeds into the Zambezi River and greatly into the Indian Ocean. And this also just builds a chain of pollution from inland into the ocean, and therefore it does matter that we should protect these areas. We should be concerned about talking about them. We should be concerned about raising awareness in our community at the lowest level, that is in terms of protection, and just ensuring that we understand the benefits that are brought by the ocean. But even more so, I want to, and this is actually the center of my conversation or my presentation, is that what role do youth have in ocean literacy? We acknowledge that youth hold the power today, I think, of driving change through policy engagement, through activism, and through their creative potential. And one of the things that youth bring to the table is, first of all, we are creative connectors around the globe. In the picture, the first on your right, you will see that there's a painting there. This is from a colleague from the United States, who was also a high seas ambassador through ECHO International, who has been rallying for communities to come together to paint murals together. And his artistic work has spread throughout the world. They have spread out throughout conversations with regards to ocean protection. But even more relevant and more important is just how much impact that has made in the community. I feel that is where the ownership begins to build and the action begins to be created. And so young people have become creatives, they have become connectors through the art, through their creativeness, through social media and so forth. But also, young people bring fresh ideas to the table, and that's how to narrate these stories and how to bring to light what has been forgotten. I remember growing up, I think, in learning, of course, in my social studies and geography that I took in secondary school, and we talk about the ocean, but because it's so vague and so just touchy just there and here and there, it wasn't so in-depth that after realizing the importance of what the ocean does, and in my role as IC's ambassador and through the opportunity to run a campaign, I have deliberately thought of just finding innovative and interactive ways of going back to schools and changing the narrative from just an ocean that is a water body that defines us to a water body that actually connects us in our activities to trade, to the biodiversity, and just the leisure, and also the much climate regulatory actions that it does. And also driving policies on the ground has been something that youth are very instrumental. I want to cite something outside climate change, but we have been seeing a lot of action. We've seen it in Kenya, we've seen it in South Africa, we've seen it in Zambia here, where we have rallied for policies such as the climate change and green economy bill, where we want the government to institutionalize these actions that are building up to climate resilience and sustainability. And globally, young people, through different actions, have been coming together to ensure that the 30 by 30 target that has been laid out to be accomplished or achieved by 2030, protecting 30% of our ocean by 2030, is achieved through some of the activities that I have mentioned, through the creative aspect, through changing the narrative from just a mere conversations to an action point that needs to be actually taken into account. But even more significant is that young people are the tipping point with regards to our generation's change. Young people are resilient, young people are not so bored, young people are very vibrant, and they have the potential to actually change the narrative. They have the potential to bridge the gap between what is seemingly further from our shore or from our borders, bringing it closer home and understanding what it is that matters. And in this case, the ocean, which it does, and just how it benefits us. And what then is our action steps? Even as I conclude, what it takes is that we need deliberate inclusion of ocean literacy everywhere. And I would have put an exclamation mark there, because regardless of the geographical barriers, regardless of where you are, regardless of how much the scale at which you are speaking, your movement, your activism, and so forth, we need inclusion for youth across the world. We need inclusion in policy making, especially for children and youth that are disproportionately affected by effects of climate change. And in this case, the ocean can actually play a part in mitigating and actually helping cushion these impacts by climate change. But also, we need strong policy links to local action. How do we ensure that these policies that are being made at regional level, at community level, at national level, do also encompass issues we do with ocean conservation, especially in areas such as my country, but also some of the countries in Africa that are not so much on the conversation of climate regulation with regards to ocean protection, but even more so, recognize the interconnectedness. I think it begins just there, recognizing that we are interconnected and we are not solely affected by climate change, and we need collective efforts to actually address these effects through protecting our ocean biodiversity, through ensuring that there are policies such as the High Seas Treaties. That is, I think, is a celebratory achievement where we've now reached 50 ratifications, and we just hope that the 10 of the ratifications are underway towards protecting our ocean biodiversity. At this juncture, thank you very much, and look forward to interacting more throughout the webinar. Over to you, Kendall.
Thank you so much, Autone. That was very insightful, and I think, very important for us to understand, even as landlocked countries, how important this new BBNJ, Biodiversity Beyond National Jurisdiction, High Seas Treaty really is for everyone, regardless of where they live. Next up, we're going to have Zandi. Zandi, are you ready for us?
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Oh, your hair every time. I love it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kendall. And first, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's present, the global community that carries us forward. I think there's something to be said for the intentionality with which we all show up for our oceans. And so a huge thank you for this invitation and for this moment. My name is Zandile Ndhlovu, and I'm the founder of the Black Mermaid Foundation, an organization that's based in Cape Town, South Africa. Our work is to create access to ocean spaces. And so we believe that we need to have more voices that are present in the room. We need representation. We need diverse representation in how we show up for the guardianship in our oceans. So at the heart of our work is the belief that representation matters, not just in the stories that we tell about the ocean, but in who gets to learn in it, to work in it, and lead in its protection. We believe that the future of ocean guardianship must be diverse, but that it starts with access. And we talk about access as, we're often asked, what does access mean? South Africa comes from a hard history, and I'd like to place that with us. So in the old government, Black and brown people would be arrested for being at the wrong beaches, but also people were dispossessed of their ocean-facing homes. And even when marine protected areas started to come around, in certain places, people were forcibly removed from their lands under the guise of marine protected areas to areas that did not become protected in the end. And so the ocean and land is a huge part of creating that space, creating that access, and creating that reconnection that allows everyone to believe that they belong. And so our work definitively starts with access. But it also means that we need to create connection, because people don't care for people don't care for things that they've never seen before, but they also don't care for places that they're not connected to. We only protect the places that we love, the places that we care for. And so that's why we take learners from underserved communities that are majority Black and brown out to the ocean on educational snorkel excursions, because once you can bridge from fear to connection, you can inspire guardianship. And I think that's huge. But that brings us to ocean literacy, because from this exploration is the ocean literacy that allows our learners to become guardians of the future. And so, one, I spoke about history, the hard history, and why we need to work through that. But two, in South Africa, there's a lot of communities that also live close to the ocean but have no access to the ocean. And there's something about realizing that proximity doesn't equate to access. And we need to be continuously doing that work to bridge the two. And so, ocean literacy must do more than inform. It must transform. It must inspire careers in marine science, in conservation, in policy, in innovation. And it must come with support structures that enable these young people to thrive, moving from the place of learning when they're in school to opportunities as they move through life. And so Africa is called on, rightly so, to prioritize both people and planet in her growth and in her future. But also, this is not foreign to us. I often speak about how my grandmother is the one that reminded me that nature doesn't come before us. We have always been good stewards to her. She takes care of us and we take care of her. And so we come from traditions that understand stewardship as identity, when nature is not a resource only for extraction, but it's also a relative. Yet the systems that fund the conversation and determine success, that define the value, are often rooted in Western metrics and ideologies. And I bring this back to Africa is being asked to see this incredible future, to grow and have incredible solutions and become the next superpower. And even in her becoming, I think there's something to be said about having co-creators to the dream. And so where am I? Western metrics and ideologies. And so we need to make space for indigenous knowledge. I'm the biggest, believer in this, not only as a reference point for the most diverse places in the world, most biodiverse areas, but as a currency of measure to move from colonial ways of accessing funding and the distribution of funding mechanisms. We are so used to seeing helicopter signs show up all across our shores in South Africa. And how that science often looks is that the people in the community end up in the lower forms of access to work. And I think we need to be so intentional in how we look to change that. So communities can also access the opportunities, but they can also access the funding based purely on the expert knowledge that they hold as well, writing and affecting the change in their communities. And so the question says, who gets to become the solution? We often speak about 2030, the agreements that organizations have made to lessen their carbon emissions. We talk about 2050. There'll be more plastic in the ocean, more than fish if we don't take care of our oceans. We talk about 2063, the African Union's agenda with many aspirations, but the one that speaks to me is the hope for a dignified future for all. And I believe that we need to make sure that African people are a part of co-creating the solution. And the how is critical. If we want to protect 30% of oceans by 2030, the how is critical because that's what moves us forward. And so if the frameworks don't make space for African ways of knowing, for African systems of measuring impact, how do we ensure that our communities are not just being consulted, but are co-creators in the collective future? And so the future cities, the future economies, the future careers, engineers, everything, we must also realize that as Africans, we are not, it's not shame on us from a space of climate effects. We also have the opportunity to create solutions, but we also need to have the opportunity to access the funding mechanisms that allow us to co-create solutions. And I want to link this back to how ocean literacy must be the way in which we're able to create invitation to the engineers of the future, the oceanographers of the future, multiple people that show up and co-create the solution for Africa. And so, yes, we want dignity, and yes, we want jobs, but we also want ownership and intentional social structures and communities that betters the tomorrows of the children in these places. And so as I close, we must always speak of access, not just access to oceans, but access to capital, access to careers, ensuring that there's diverse voices and ways of doing things, and that Africa must lead her future. Because this is not how we just reimagine it. It's not just through new targets, but it's through new voices at the table continuously. Thank you.
Thank you, Zandile. That was very, very powerful. I actually wrote something down here and hopefully I don't butcher it too much. It's when you bridge from the fear to connection, that's when you foster that care. And I think that is so critical, that how do people that don't understand what's there and never get the opportunity to see the ocean like we get to see it, which is such a privilege, really careful and understand why we do what we do. Next up, we're going to have Sola will be having his input.
Thank you very much. You can hear me. And then if you can hear noise in the background, is because it is raining in Lagos. Yeah, thank you for inviting me. My name is Olusola. Am I clear enough? Can you hear me?
Yes, you are clear.
Sure, you are.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So I'm based in Lagos. Of course, you know, Lagos is just by the Atlantic Ocean, so it makes my work very easy. Thank you, Kandel, and thank you for inviting me to this conversation. Thank you for those who have already spoken earlier. My contribution is very short, and I hope I will make it short. I'd like to begin by reminding you that the subject we are dealing with is not one that is new, but the way we are dealing with the subject is what is creating a lot of dilemma for many of us. In the late 1980s, it was clear that the cod fishery that's in Canada was going to collapse. And you expect that people will act to make sure that this particular fishery that provides a lot of support for indigenous people in that part of the world, and that Canada made quite a lot of money from this fishery, that they would take good care of it. In the 1990s, the story was clear that the cod fishery, the northern fishery, equally collapsed. So there was a tipping point earlier, but they waited until the fishery collapsed before people began to act. Why are we here today? We're here today because we realize there's a need to pay a critical attention to the ocean. there's a need for us to actually act fast, because before what we have access to today in the ocean becomes a thing of the past. In the western part of Atlantic, in the southern part of Atlantic where I am, small-scale fishery is one of the most important parts of the fishery system in Nigeria, and of course in West Africa. For a number of years, it's clear that the tuna fishery has collapsed. Why? Because we refuse to pay critical attention to, a number of signals that what were put in place that were so glaring to us. We know that small-scale fishery, particularly, supports more than 90% of the coastal communities' daily activities. We also know that government and everyone make quite a lot of, money, support their livelihood through small-scale fishery. For them, the tuna fishery, which was one of the most vibrant and most important, not only for small-scale fishers, but industrial fishers in this part of the world, has become a thing of the past. Why? Because we refuse to pay attention to illegal fishing, we refuse to pay attention to overfishing, and coupled with the impact of climate change. Little attention, were paid to this, and without appropriate policy on ground, the tuna fishery has become a thing of the past. Of course, now it's reappearing, not because the policy has changed, but nature somehow is intervening, and some countries within the continent, within the West Africa, are responding to the changes that are taking place in the environment. So, the tipping point, being the theme of what are the overall issue that we're talking about, actually, call our attention to the fact that, look, whatever it is we pay our attention to, whatever it is we are extracting in terms of the ocean, it is not going to be finite. It's not going to be there forever. And if we do not pay a critical attention to it, there's a possibility that at one point in time, we go over the cliff. We have seen it on land. Much of our land resources, had been gone into degradation. And if attention is not paid again to the ocean, we are likely going to face the same thing. Now, considering what my colleague, spoke about, particularly with reference to the ocean literacy, we understand that the best way to actually change the narrative, to ensure that the ocean, the resources in it, continue to support human life, knowing that majority of those of us who live around the ocean depend and extract a source of living from the ocean. So the ocean literacy becomes a ready-made tool to actually re-educate, our community, our government, the industry, and everyone that cares to listen, so that we can, at this particular time, before we tip over to the other side, change the narrative. Here in Lagos, we felt that the right thing to do is to actually engage the young people, just like my colleague in Zambia and in South Africa has mentioned, or have mentioned. It's important to actually engage the young people, change their orientation, encourage them to actually engage their parents, and possibly a government, will listen. So we looking at the West African subcontinent region. If you look at the amount of the areas of our ocean, the areas of our coast that are under protection, it's quite minimal. And in some countries, out of the so-called 38 countries that make up the continent, there are, countries that actually do not have a single, protected area. So the best way we feel to change the narrative is to engage the young people, not only to talk to them, but actually engage them in doing the conservation, doing the mapping of the ocean, doing the mapping of the mangrove, doing the collection of basic data for fishery management. So we feel the right way to go about it is to change the narrative and engage the young people so that we collectively can change the narrative. So the challenge we face, like we have had, is something that is not new, but the right time to change the narrative is now. And one important tool that we can use to change it in order not to repeat what happened in Canada in the 1990s, the right way to go about it now is to get into, to use the young people and everyone that cares to begin to do the right thing. So I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sola. That was very, very powerful as well. I think what you highlighted there around many West African countries not protecting any of their or conserving any of their own estate, ocean space is very critical. But I think that's common through around Africa. 21 of our coastal states don't protect less than 1% of their EEZ. And I think it's critical for us to, like you say, engage people in these conversations around why it's important for us to do what we do, and how important it is for the people themselves. We're going into a discussion session, so please, if you would, we have some questions that were already submitted to us, which we'll be asking the panelists, but if you have additional questions, please start popping them in the chat and then we can get to them. Our first question that was submitted is to Zandile. Zandile, how can the average citizen make meaningful contributions towards helping the country achieve the 30 by 30 goal?
I think, this is a big question. But I think it's always a partnership. It is driving policy, working to drive policy. So how are we getting to our how are we getting to our ministers? How are we getting to our municipal leaders? But I think community action is everything. I believe in it. I think it's what sees us forward. We often think that we need to be a big organization in order to be able to create change. No, it's often calling your family, calling your friends, going out, speaking up. I think your voice is a powerful way of showing up, but also as we gather together to be able to drive policy and drive our leaders to the right decisions, we need to utilize that. There's power in numbers. And I think even as an ocean conservation community, we've also seen that to drive the ocean forward, it is only when our numbers rise that we move the needle forward. And I think that is true in any and every world.
Thanks, Zandile. I 100% agree with you. I don't think these changes are going to be made in Parliament or in boardrooms or at these large conferences. I think it's really the ground root that is going to push this narrative forward. Please, any of the other panelists, if you'd like to jump into someone else's question while we're talking, please feel free to weigh in as well. The second question that was submitted was for Sola. Sola, so we have actually discussed this question a bit, but I'm going to raise it here because I think you answer it so well. How can resource-poor communities benefit from the ocean?
Yeah, thank you very much. The right thing first and foremost, like Zandile has mentioned over and over, is that we need to actually recognize the communities themselves. So we need to actually see them as partners. We need to see them as people, not just as like you just want to tick the box. You know, more often than not, we always believe that we, the so-called experts, we have the solution, and then the community just have to take whatever it is that we need to offer. It doesn't work that way. So the best way to get the co-benefit is actually, create a level playing ground. See the community first and foremost as equal partner, and therefore also respect their value, respect their knowledge, respect their culture. Know that they have quite a lot of things to bring to the table. And on that note, the co-benefit, whatever it is at the end, will be something that is worthwhile. So the errors of handing over, believing that we have the solution as experts, and we just go to the community and dictate to them what we feel is the solution. Those days are gone. These communities have been, I'm part of the community, but I grew up in the community. So I know how my father had done things for many years. So I don't want to just give you a straightforward answer, but I would like to emphasize the aspect that the time has come for us to recognize the community as the solution, not just part of the solution, that the solution emanates from them. Give them the opportunity to speak, create a platform for them, and then whatever becomes the co-benefit at the end of it all, emanate from them. That is what I can say.
Thank you, Sola. I love that. In this whole conversation, something that Zandile, would you like to go in? Go for it.
Yes, please. I would like to support something that Olusola had brought up, and I think it goes back to how the question was framed. We spoke about resource poor communities, and Olusola the other day very rightly placed us to say language is everything, because there are no places such as resource poor, especially when we're speaking about Africa. And so I would like to hand it back over to Olusola if he's okay to take us through that point. But I think language is a huge part when it comes to conservation and how we drive any kind of message. It must be inclusive. It must not create, because when you say resource poor, I immediately say we've never been resource poor. And so if I can please bring it back to you.
100%, Sola. If you can talk into that, because that for me, when we were discussing this, was critical. You're on mute, Sola. Oh, have we? Oh, there you are.
I didn't get it. Can you hear me?
Sola, so
Yeah,
Zandile
I missed the last comment.
No problem. Essentially, Zandile was raising the point that we were speaking about when we met earlier in the week around how communities are not resource poor. But you put it so well based on the context that you have, and I wondered if you'd like to speak into that.
Yeah, I was just saying, if you can hear me now, I'm struggling with the rain. I don't know where it comes from. So I was just saying that that the time has come that discussing the co-benefit, with the community. First and foremost, what we should think about is that we should see the community themselves as the solution. Okay, so of course it is co-benefit, but then what we often see in most discussion or in most intervention is that we, the so-called experts, we go to the community, okay, and we dictate what is the solution in the name of co-benefit to the community. I feel this is wrong. The community for several generations, for several years, have managed these resources within the coast, within the ocean, without much degradation, without much destruction. So the time has come for us to see the community as the solution to the problem and reduce the external intervention in the name of NPA, no-take zone, in the name of protected area that displays the community, see them as problem in the name of co-creating solution. So let's see the community as the solution, listen to them, give them the opportunity to, itemize what can be done as this, as the solution, but not just the so-called we experts dictating the solution to the community. That was the point I was trying to raise. I'm sorry, I'm speaking over my voice because the rain just started pouring.
No, the rain's always, well, with the amount of rain we've had lately, it's not always a blessing, but rain is always a blessing. So we can't hear it in the background and you're loud and clear. Autone, I'm going to go over to you. We have a question that was sent through particularly for you. It says, you're from a landlocked country, which some might assume means you have less invested in our ocean spaces. But as an ambassador for the High Seas Alliance, why is it important that we all get behind the High Seas Treaty?
Thank you very much, Kendo. And I think unlike everyone's struggling with the rain, I'm struggling with cold. It's a bit chilly now in Zambia, but I think it's something relatable. So I think coming from a landlocked country, being passionate about the ocean might be considered to be counterintuitive or something that is far-fetched, but we have to realize that the health of the ocean is our health, and we are more dependent on the ocean than it is dependent on our actions. And so there is a need for collaborative action in addressing the High Seas Treaty because, first of all, it protects areas of the ocean that we all use, that are connected, that are connectors of trade, that are connected of ideas, that are connectors of even resources. When we talk about the marine genetic information that we can have access to, that lies within these oceans that have not yet been discovered, some to the even amazement of people that thought they knew the ocean like the back of their hand. And it's also saddening that we look up to the sky and wonder how much there is when we do not know more about the ocean, and we're actually, in fact, destroying most of it. And I think at this point, we need to realize that since we are connected by this ocean, it gives us so much resource, it gives us so much availability to even the simple thing that we might not so much appreciate as oxygen, but it's a great contributor to our livelihood. Let's just accept that. But there's need for us to be collective because we benefit from it. But even more so, as a climate regulator, we have, I think, I got to learn, and this year has been quite a good year because I only started talking about the ocean just recently at an in-depth after joining the ambassadorship program. And I think before it was so vague, but I got to learn of the seagrass that has the potential to actually capture carbon than the Amazon forest. And it was so amazing that the numbers were so big, and I would wonder how I always thought that the Amazon was such a big contributor to our climate regulation, which it is, but of course, more significance is owed to what the ocean can do, but also the biodiversity that lies within the ocean that the High Seas Treaty seeks to protect. And I would want to highlight some of the areas which the High Seas Treaty aims to address through implementations of MPAs, basically national parks in the ocean that protect this biodiversity that lie within outside our reach from our coastal lines. But also, I think this is something that is very important to a landlocked country like Zambia, which is the implementation of a financing facility that landlocked countries can also tap into if they want to go into ocean exploration, they want to broaden their understanding in research, in academia, on how they can also contribute to and benefit from the ocean. And additionally, on capacity building and transfer of marine technology. I think this personally has also gravitated me to a point of trying to see in my education if I can also go further to look at how marine biodiversity can be a career choice, because the potential is so massive, both career-wise, but also much of the work that can be done to just engaging and enabled through the High Seas Treaty, through the transfer of capacity and also marine technology. So as a landlocked country, we should be so concerned, not just because there are benefits attached to the treaty, but also there are regulations that would then curb the pollution, the overfishing, the trawling that is happening in these areas that cannot speak for themselves. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Autone. And I think we're getting towards the end of our session here. And I thought it might be nice to always end on a note of hope. So I had one question that I was hoping each panelist could very quickly answer. So in one sentence, and I'm going to hold you to your one sentence, what gives you hope for Africa's future ocean? What gives you hope for Africa's future ocean? Zandile, can we put you on the spot and get you first?
What gives me hope is her youth. I think we're in a powerful place where the youth advocacy has shown up in ways that like we've never seen before. And I think that's powerful. That's a place of hope. And I think above everything, I hope we don't make the ocean a place only of extraction. So even when we look at the BBNJ Treaty and high seas protection, she is not only for extraction and research and human consumption. And we need to hold the reverence that she is, and she gives so much. We need to also witness that. But what gives me hope, her youth, her future, the solutions that she's going to come up with because of her sheer brilliance, because of Africa's history.
Thanks, Zandile. Sola?
Yeah, thank you, my sister. Allow me to say my sister. my hope actually lies in the abundance of the young people that we have on the continent that are not only draw inspiration from entertainment, they are not, draw inspiration only from skit making, but they're actually powerful using technology, developing indigenous solutions to, to African problems, particularly the ocean. We have them from Tanzania to Kenya to the port city of Lagos, even in Zimbabwe, the so-called, like my brother said, landlocked country. We have people, young people that are tapping into whatever it is that is on the internet, the machine learning and the AI to provide solution, to not only imagine, not only the nascent, the age-long African problem, including the ocean-related problem. So this is the hope that I think with the support, whatever it is, funding, whatever it is, the hope I have is the young people of Africa are powerful enough with the right support to provide solution and to lead the kind of sustainable ocean that we'd like to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Sola. And Autone, you're saving the youth, I think, for last, although I think you're all youth. So in one sentence, your hope for Africa's future?
Interconnectors. Young people, I think, have stopped working in isolation. I recognize that we did work in collective spaces, but I think the collective space now has become wider, and the need for interconnection with regards to ocean conservation and environmental sustainability has become huge with the coming of technology, as Olusola has said. And I really appreciate that. And I think this is the bigger hope that I look onto towards ocean conservation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Autone, and thank you, Sola and Zandile, for your insights and the learnings that we've had today. We are just wrapping up, and just would really like to say that the insights and your significant contributions towards conservation don't go unnoticed. Having these conversations and really highlighting the role that African youth can play in the space, I think is critical, and we need to keep standing on those mountaintops or tops of waves and shouting this to everyone out there. So as we end, the next OGRC Tipping Points webinar is scheduled for the 31st of July. It's titled Reaching for Coexistence Between People and Wildlife. Please keep an eye on our social media pages and look out for that link. And please don't forget to sign up for the OGRC quarterly newsletter to stay updated in the future. You can find the links in the chat box. For those of you that missed any of this webinar, it'll be on the OGRC YouTube channel, so you could just go on there and have a look. There'll also be a summary of the webinar. Once again, just thank you to everyone, and please don't forget to register for the next Tipping Points coming up on the 31st of July. Thank you to the panelists, and have a lovely day, everyone. Bye.